Welcome to the place where paths collide. Crossroad Conversations, let's take the ride. From shadows deep to the light we see. Stories of strength, the voices speak.
What's up, Worcester? This is Jacqueline from Women Strong Recovery and Wellness Coaching, and I am here on Crossroad Conversations, Season 2, Episode 5. And I'm very excited to interview this person. As you know, that's like my famous line at this point. Very excited. And I am. I get to, really learn different folks and what they've been through and how they've conquered. And I feel like for our guest today, Rosa, we get to learn just her strength, her ability to overcome, and what that looks like. So we're going to journey through that, talk to her more about her experience and what that is. And really, I think this will be empowering and uplifting. And I hope that someone out there finds that for them. And that's what these episodes are for that empowering, uplifting, energy. And I hope you feel it today because she looks stunning and you can feel that like there's been some things happening in your life that have made you shine and you have like a glow about you.
Oh, thank you. I actually feel like I keep saying that. Like I'm like I was shining last year and I'm shining even more this year. Like that's kind of like my inner where I say it to myself, like keep shining, girl. Keep shining.
I love that. And I can feel that. So introduce yourself and then we'll start to get into why you even came to sit with us today.
Okay, my name's Rosa Rivera, and I am a therapeutic mentor for youth, also a youth permanency specialist, and I'm a 8.5 year cancer survivor, breast cancer survivor, and I've overcome depression. And I always like to say cancer saved my life because I was in a deep, dark depression prior to being diagnosed with cancer, and then being diagnosed with cancer made me live life to the fullest. It really made me appreciate life more, and just have this like newfound zest for life, if you will. Like I was always a positive person. I was always, even through, like, no one knew. Like I talk now about the depression I went through, and no one knew that I went through a depression, right? And that's sadly a lot of people go through dark times and no one knows sometimes until it's too late. And I've had that experience in family, and I've had that experience with friends. So, I just want to share my story in hopes that I inspire someone else, that I help someone speak up, or help someone going through cancer find strength like I did. Depression, cancer, whatever they're going through. And I have been told that being the person that I am and my strength through my journey has helped other people with other things in their life. And that just warms my heart every time someone says that to me. So I just want to keep sharing and keep shedding that light.
I love that. And I think, when you're dealing with, and I hear, mental health and then cancer, and there's this idea that like, well, which one would bring the mental health and how can you navigate through that and just being able to overcome even in something as a diagnosis that maybe you don't know if you're going to actually survive that particular diagnosis, right? So a lot of choice in how you navigate that.
Yes.
So as you talk about your mental health, let's go there first because I think, did you realize you were in like this depression, or did the diagnosis, you know, uplift that, or like how was you navigating that if you weren't really speaking about that?
So I had to have a hysterectomy at the age of 38, and I always wanted kids, and I always suffered from ovarian cyst and fibroids in my uterus. And so when I was told I had to have a hysterectomy, it was like, what? And it wasn't even that I was told I had to have a hysterectomy. It was more that I was told I had a tumor in my fibroid that was big and they needed to remove it. And I had a choice of an ablation, a hysterectomy, or a myomectomy, which is where they go in and they just remove that. I had that done 7 years prior, and I was like, here I am again, right, with another fibroid that the doctor can't promise me that there's not going to be more or whatnot. And the months leading up to that hysterectomy, I struggled. I was depressed. I prayed to God to take me on the operating table. I didn't want to survive that surgery. I thought about ways to take my own life. And I was going on a trip with my sister to Jamaica right before the hysterectomy. I actually like had it scheduled where I came home the night before surgery. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, my sister's really been looking forward to this trip. I can't do that to her. And it was my birthday. But when you start having those suicidal ideations, right? And it's like, I knew that I'm scared of pain, so I would never actually hurt myself. But the fact that I was thinking about what would be the less painful way to do it, that's when I realized I'm like, and then I'm praying to God, like, I don't want to live. Like, let me go to sleep, let them put me under anesthesia and let me not wake up. And that's when I was like, I'm this is a serious depression, right? Because you go through sad times in your life, you go through depression. I've suffered from anxiety and from panic attacks since I was in high school, but I was never that depressed where I would literally pray to not live. And then you fast forward 6 months later, while I'm still healing emotionally and mentally from that hysterectomy, I found a lump in my right breast, and that ended up being cancer. And I was like, oh my God, did it spread? Like, what am I going to die? And that fear of that cancer was going to kill me. I was like, oh, I see you, universe. I see you, God. I want to live. Yeah, I do. And that's where I say cancer saved my life, because it made me pull me out of that depression, like, completely. Like, I was starting to pull myself out. I started going to therapy, but I really like that just like went in and just like ripped me right out. Was like, well, we're just gonna reel you right back, and you're not gonna think about this. And I haven't prayed to die, so that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy to be alive, and I'm grateful for my life, and I'm thriving.
Yeah. When you were going, they give you these options of a hysterectomy or an ablation or, all these different things. Was there any talks of, did they offer services for mental health? Did they go over your options of like, what would it look like now that, for you carrying a child is off the table and like all these other different emotional things that happen that you were already thinking about? Were you able to discuss it? You know, were there resources for you? Because I feel like I'm thinking about when I was younger and I would have, I had cysts, a lot of cysts and everything on my ovaries.
Yeah.
And I was in my 20s and they were doing, I felt like an experiment, and nobody talked to me. I felt like, I also had like a white old gynecologist, like that now, especially if I have my daughter, I would be like, no, let's find a female, let's find a woman of color, let's find like, more options to talk about it. Cause I think that it's such a thing we don't speak about, and we're just thrown these options and thinking that we don't have other options. So was any of that, like, what was going through your mind? Were resources available? How did you navigate those spaces?
That's a really good question. One of the ways that I navigated to kind of narrow down what procedure I wanted was, I have a cousin that lives in Miami who's a gynecologist. And I was like, hello, let's talk. And she was like, ablation, no. We took that right off the table, right? Having that conversation with her, I trusted her. She's my family. She is a gynecologist, right? She's Latina. She understands our body. That was number one. That was like my first immediate thing. And no, there wasn't really a lot of resources. They did talk about, like, we don't want if you chose hysterectomy, you're young, we would keep your ovaries in, like you could always freeze your eggs, like things like that. Like, those little conversations were had. And I think like people from the community, like friends or other people who were trying to like help make things better or like comfort me in some way, would be like, oh, you can always adopt, you can always this. And it's like, yeah, well, those are like kind of obvious things, right? Like, everyone, obviously I work with kids in foster care. Like, yes, I know that's something that is an option. But every woman that wants to have kids, most women, not every woman that wants to have kids, because some want kids and they want to do the adoption route. I was a woman that wanted to actually be pregnant. I wanted to birth a child. And so that was hard for me. But when I was in Jamaica, like I did a lot of meditating, and I had told them I wanted a myomectomy. And my doctor said, I'm not sure if I can promise you that you're not going to be here 10 years down the road again. And I was like, that's hard, you know? And so when I was in Jamaica, I meditated on it, and on top of praying to not survive the surgery, I was also like meditating on what choice do I make for this surgery, right? Like, what do I do? Like, which option am I going to go with? Because if you don't request my wish of wanting to die, like I have to have a surgery, right? Like, so what am I doing here? So I meditated a lot, but also because I have that social work background in me where I went to school for sociology. My mom was a social worker, like that genes in me, you know, where I can kind of talk myself through and almost like be my own therapist and be like, okay, Rosa, that's wild. You're having these wild thoughts, and like, let's reel you in, which is kind of how I got through all of it. I didn't seek a therapist until I had that surgery in March of 2017, and I went and saw a therapist in September of 2017 when my sister had to have the same surgery. And I wanted a therapist to help me be able to help her go through that surgery because I knew it was a tough surgery. So the day of surgery, when they came, and they're like, what, you know, they always ask you name, date of birth, what are you having done today? Because they want to make sure that you are consenting to it. And I said hysterectomy, and they were like, whoa. And the doctor came in and she looked at me. She was like, you sure? And I was like, mm-hmm. She's like, okay. She crossed it off. She goes, you have to initial right here. I was like, gladly. And I initialed it. Off I went. The next day she came in and she was like, honey, you didn't have a choice. And I'm so glad that you made that choice for yourself, because it was entangled around everything. It was coming out of the uterus, entangled around the fallopian tube, the cervix. I mean, all of it. It was all gone. She was like, she said, if I had to wake you up and tell you that I had to take everything when that wasn't your choice, she's like, that's a terrible thing to say to someone. My fibroid was this big, and it had all these other little fibroids under it. She told me it was the size of a 6-month pregnancy. Wow. It was to give you an idea of how big that fibroid was that was just taking over everything. And friends, my sister, and just talking to people, friends that would come visit me. It was a hard surgery because they cut me hip bone to hip bone. So that was 7.5 weeks at home. I think maybe 5 weeks where I couldn't get myself out of bed. And that's like, I had to learn to ask for help, which was hard in and of itself. You know, like when you're the kind of person that you don't ask for help for anything, and then here you are, you have to ask for help. And that kind of I started spiraling again and started realizing that I was getting more depressed because I was frustrated that I couldn't go to work. I was frustrated that I had to ask for help for everything. And now I still have to ask for help. Even sometimes like opening a water bottle, because everything I've gone through in my cancer journey, I'm like, and that's it. I am the weakest link, and it is okay. Like, I'm just like, I've learned to be okay with it, because you have to. Like, it is what it is. But yeah, I think back, and I love that question, but I would want to say my community got me through that because I didn't seek therapy. And you know, I think back and I'm like, why? Why did it take me 6 months to seek therapy? Why did it take me until my sister went through it to seek therapy?
And I wonder too, though, did your doctor talk to you about it? Did they offer it? Was it something that was even a conversation? Because I think in my experience and, you know, having a lot of things and, you know, there was never any other offering of services, you know, and maybe it's like that helpline that you're like, who's calling a damn helpline, you know, like like you have to really be, you know, I don't know, completely desperate, but you know, I think the conversations is just like, what resources are you given for someone that you have just changed the entire trajectory of their life and what they thought was going to be part of their story, right?
And it's sad. And it's sad because they don't talk to you about any of that. Like, I mean, they may have said stuff about adoption or fostering, or they may have given me pamphlets on that, but it's sad because
Yeah.
they're just so used to doing like surgery after surgery after surgery that
Yeah.
they don't take the time to think about those things.
Yeah.
They don't take the time. And I loved my surgeon, don't get me wrong. I absolutely
Yeah.
loved her, but they just don't take the time to, or at least my doctors didn't where I went, right?
Yeah.
No one took the time to talk about those things with me at all.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was friends who would say, well, you could freeze your eggs. I'm like, that's expensive. I don't have money for that. Or you
Yeah.
could do it. I'm like, that's not going to happen. You know, like you know. One of my little cousins who's 10 years younger than me said, I'll carry a child for you. Totally threw me into tears. I was like, I love you. You know, like just the fact
The
that she said
gesture.
that, the gesture of her saying, I will carry a child for you, like, bless her.
Yeah.
You know, that she's like, why are you crying? I'm like, what do you think I'm crying? Like, that is like the sweetest thing anyone's ever said. Like, you know, you're literally saying that you would carry a child. She's like, well, you were like my mama and you like helped raise me. You know, because she lived upstairs from me I was 10 when she was born, right? And I was like a little mama bear since I was 10 years old. But I've mothered kids in other ways,
Yeah.
right? I have my godchildren that I helped raise, and my nephews that my sister fostered that were still in their lives, and all the little cousins and stuff,
Yeah.
and all my friends' kids that I've helped be a motherly auntie to them.
Yeah. I just seen that quote that's going around with Tracy Ellis Ross,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, you know, she's an auntie, she has had any kids, but she's like, I've been mothering for a lifetime, you know, so it's like it doesn't necessarily carrying biologically doesn't necessarily mean that you're mothering, or if you're an auntie or whatever. Like there's
Yeah.
so many. I mean, I pride like just, you know, that womanhood and that, you know, those aunties are so special.
Yeah.
I know that for me growing up, like it was the aunties, you know, that I had that like were the ones I looked up to, you know, like and that you could go to and run to. So they may be even more special, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and needed,
Yeah.
right,
Yep.
for your
And I
life.
have my niece,
Yeah.
and she's actually really cute. She just turned 16 last month, and last year I had my dream come true where my photography was in a gallery,
Mm.
and I sold my photography. And she was like, "How did I not know I had such a cool aunt?" And I'm like, "That was the cutest thing." I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, kiddo, hang out with me a little bit more, and you'll get
Yeah.
to know I'm really cool. Like,
Yeah.
I really am." So, but it was cute, you know,
Yeah.
that she was loved my photography, and she is so into painting, and she would say to me like, send me that photo, I'm gonna paint it. I still haven't seen the painting yet, but I have faith that she will paint one of my photos one day and send it to me.
It would be a gift.
Yes.
So what did it look like? You're saying, you know, you had this 6 month, you know, gap of like you were in depression, you know, this rehab that you had to rehabilitate yourself and you had family come in, which is beautiful. But what did that start to look like as you were getting, you know, closer to physically healing, but emotionally maybe not? And then the idea that like, oh, I better get myself to therapy. And I know you said you utilized it for your sister more.
Hmm.
And I wonder if that was like it was more available for you as a person to use for your sister than it is for yourself, and
Yeah.
what that journey kind of looked like is getting into therapy, and what are your revelation in that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, I
Mm,
lived with her at the time, and I just knew like what she wasn't in therapy, and I knew what it did to me,
mm,
right? Because I knew what I had gone through, and no one knew what I had gone through. I think I had one friend at the time
mm,
who actually knew how depressed I was, just one. And that was it. Like, and I have a lot of friends. And I have a
mm,
big family, you know. And I just didn't share it with everyone, and I'm not sure why. And I think that's why I want to like help people and just speak about it, because we have to take away that stigma of folks not talking about it. You know, I had a friend who took her own life, and if you saw her, she was the most smile, always had a smile on her face, was always happy, like you would never know. And I think back to that time, it's like no one would know that I
yeah,
felt that way, right? And that I prayed that I wouldn't live. Um, and so that revelation came from still feeling that way and still being angry that I didn't have kids sooner, angry that, as I always said that when I was 35, I would have kids on my own and I would just do it. If I wasn't married, if I didn't have a partner, I would do it on my own. And then when I turned 35, I was like, am I being selfish bringing a child into this world by myself? And that was a struggle in and of itself, right? I literally would cry to my friends and be like, I can't do this. And they're like, what do you mean? That's what you've always wanted to do. And I'm like, I can't bring a child into this world without a dad. Like, why? Why would I do that? This world is hard enough. Why would I do that to a child? And so I was at that point after the hysterectomy, I was mad at myself. Like I wasted those 3 years from when I turned 35 that I had set that goal for myself. And then you start thinking of all these other little things, right? And you start getting angry at yourself. Like I wasted all these years, like liking this one person or in love with the wrong person or like you start just breaking yourself apart. And I was like, stop doing this to yourself. Like, so I think I used my sister having surgery as an excuse, right, to help her go through what she was about to go through. But it was also, I was breaking myself apart. I was angry with myself. I was like kind of almost scolding myself within and being like, you wasted your time with this. You wasted your time with that. You wasted your youth. You wasted, like, no, stop. It's like what is meant for you is going to find you. And I was meant to mother children in a different way. And I needed to learn to accept that. And so, my therapist helped me on. I say that I sought therapy for that, but it's like, no, God knew like he was about to give me the biggest challenge of my life. And it was a good thing that I was already in therapy and I had a relationship with that therapist already. And that therapist already knew everything else that I was going through, because a cancer diagnosis, that just changes you in so many ways.
Yeah. What did it look like as you were seeking therapy and your sister was going through her? Did you see that you were able to navigate her through, and or did it just turn out to be like, no,
It
this is
helped
about
me.
you?
Yeah, it helped me. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was more like helping me navigate to don't get upset about something, or don't, if something happens, or just not letting things, not just with her, it wasn't even about her, like just not letting things bother me at all. I remember having a friend who said to me, she's like, you're so different at work, you just don't let things bother you. And I was like, no, I don't. And it helped me realize that the work that I was doing at that time wasn't the work I wanted to do. I still stayed within banking, but I changed jobs and I became a mortgage loan officer. 1 week after accepting that job, I got diagnosed with cancer. And I wanted to take back my acceptance and I wanted to just rescind the whole thing and stay where I was. And my manager at the time was like, And I said, I can't battle cancer and learn mortgages. Like, I'm not doing that. He's like, you can and you will. He's like, you're not taking it back. He's like, no. And that was the director, like the manager of the department I was in. But I was leaving and he knew I was a good employee. He's like, you are amazing. You are going to do good things and you can do this. My first day on the job, I was in surgery. They held the job for a week. I went and started a week later in that department. And then I got the call that my margins weren't clear and I had to go back and have another surgery. And then I was out of work for 5 months. And they held that job for me. And I say that it was the perfect place because I think if I had been in the previous position, I don't think the manager was amazing, but I don't think the supervisor I had at that time would have been as supportive of me. And I don't know how that would have looked. I'm sure the manager would have fought to like help save my position, but when you work for a agency, you can have a position waiting for you when you come back after 5.5 months, but it might not be the one that you had, right? And so that was always the fear. But the mortgage department, they waited for me and they treated me so well when I went back. I mean, up to like the COO of the company, the CEO of the company, they were all just so amazing through my whole journey, through my healing process, which took me a long time. I went back to work part-time for a whole year before I went back to work full-time after my cancer journey.
So take us a little bit through, if you don't mind, like that journey of what it looked like to be diagnosed, how you maybe kept going to therapy, and how that, because you said that that actually pulled you out of this deep, dark depression. So what did that look like as you were journeying through? Did you have to do chemo? What it like, and stuff like that? Like, how did that transpire?
So I'll start with how I was diagnosed.
Okay.
I was showering one day, and so you talk about cysts, right? And I
Mhm.
said I always had ovarian cysts, but I also had cysts in my breast.
Mm.
So I had a joke with my surgeon that I had a 2-year plan where every 2 years I was in his office and he was removing a cyst from the left, from the right, from the left, like every other. It was just every time, since 2011. And it was now 2017. November of 2017 was when I was diagnosed. But in September, I was showering and I found a lump like high up in this breast area.
Mhm.
And I was like, what is this? And every now and then, like I could feel it, then I couldn't. It was this big. Like when I would put my hand over it, it was this big. And I already had a mammogram scheduled, but like I said, I was only 38 years old. So mammograms at that time,
Yeah.
you didn't have to have them until you were 40 or 45, I
Yeah.
think was the age. Because I had cystic breast, I was having them done since 2011. So I called him and I said, I know that you have a mammogram scheduled for the left breast, but you need to include the right because I found something in my right breast. Because I was young, the mammograms were not bilateral. They only did a mammogram on the breast where they found a cyst or they found something. That was
Okay.
it. Like it wasn't like they would check. It
Mandatory.
wasn't
Yeah.
mandatory to check both of them. It was just specific for that. So I said, there's something in the right breast. Please, like, let's have a mammogram for that one as well. And he was like, absolutely.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of October of 2017. It was a 2D mammogram, which is what they send everyone to, and they need to stop that. They need to like get rid of 2D mammograms because my mammogram came back normal.
Mm.
And I saw him and he was like, all right, I'll see you in 3 months. He scheduled me to see him in December. And I remember like all these dates. It's
Yeah.
absurd. Like December 17th, he was like, I'll see you in December 17th. I'm like, okay. A week later, the hospital calls me and they're like, you need to come back to have a 3D mammogram and an ultrasound of your breast because the tests were inconclusive. And I just started crying because I was at work and my coworker's like, what's wrong? I was like, something's wrong. The hospital called me. I called my doctor's office. He's like, I didn't order that. And I said, so he's very calm. He was amazing through it all. Never wanted me to worry unless there was something to worry about. And he's like, sometimes the radiologist will just do that. They just want more tests. This doesn't mean anything concerning. Like, let's just see what they find.
Yeah.
So I went in for that 3D mammogram. When I had gone for the 2D one, I had told the tech that when I would raise my arm up, and I showed her when I would raise my arm, the nipple reverted in, and I was like, something's just not right. And then like I kind of had to go like this to like show the lump because that was the only way you could see it.
Yeah.
And so I showed it to her, and I think she was like my little guardian angel because she said that to the radiologist. And when the test came back normal, they were like, something's clearly not normal there. So when I had the 3D mammogram and the ultrasound, the radiologist came in and did the ultrasound herself as well. And she was like, you found a lump in your breast. And I said, yeah. She's like, it's suspicious. And I want to have you have a biopsy. And I was like, okay. So I went for the biopsy and that was terrible. The pain was terrible. And the lady's like, I'm so sorry. This is a really tough tissue. I felt so lightheaded. I was in so much pain and I was like, something's wrong. This isn't right. And that was a Monday. And on that Friday, the doctor called me and told me that I had lobular breast cancer. And he called me over the phone and I felt like he was screaming in my ear. I was just like, why is this man like screaming at me? And I later someone was like, that was your blood pressure dropping. So it just sounded like he was so amplified. Um, and I was in his office that Monday, and by the following Monday, I had surgery. And by the time that December date came, I had had two surgeries. I had one surgery on November 13th, and I had a second one on December 8th because my margins weren't clear. And then the plan was 6 months of chemo and 7.5 weeks of radiation. But I went to Dana-Farber for a second opinion. And so now, fast forward, it's now January of 2018 when I went to Dana-Farber. And I went to them the night before I was supposed to have a port put in for chemo. So I was supposed to have surgery the very next day to put in a port because I don't like needles. So I was like, we're doing the port option, like put that in so you don't have to poke me with a needle.
Every time.
Yes. So Dana-Farber was like, no. They're like, the American Cancer Society, they changed how they diagnose folks. And I was stage 3 lobular breast cancer. And when I went to Dana-Farber, they were like, you're technically considered stage 1 because as of January 1st of 2018, they changed how they diagnose you. And it was no longer based on just your size of your tumor. It wasn't based just on your age. Like they had other parameters that they based it on.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had tested my tumor. It was 5 centimeters big, but only 2.5% of that was cancerous and the other half was benign.
Okay.
So because of that, they were like, you're stage 1. We're going to run extra tests. She said, cancel that appointment tomorrow morning. It was now 4:45, the night before I'm supposed to have surgery, first thing in the morning. I was mad. I was scrambling to cancel that appointment, to call the surgeon's office, to call the hospital. Like I was supposed to be there at 7:30 in the morning. We canceled it. Dana-Farber ran an extra test. 2 weeks later, they were like, you don't need chemo. Chemo would be less than 1% effective. Everyone in my family was happy, and I was angry. I was so angry. I had mentally prepared for chemo. No one wants to go through chemo. Like, what? I think back and I'm like, why were you so mad, Rosa? But the strength that it takes to mentally prepare yourself for chemo, like, I think that's the part that no one understood. Like, I was mentally prepared for that journey, for that treatment plan. And now the Cancer Society, they changed how they diagnose people. And now I'm like the guinea pig of the new cancer world. I was scared. I was mad. I was angry. I had so many feelings. But now, like, I get it. And now I fundraise for the American Cancer Society, like through the Relay for Life of Greater Gardner. Like, I get it and I understand it. And I'm grateful I didn't go through chemo. But at that time, no one could tell me that that was a good thing. I felt like the guinea pig of the new cancer world. It was scary.
Did it feel like they were gonna miss something, and then, like the shoe was gonna drop?
Yeah, because my cancer, lobular breast cancer has higher risk of coming back bilaterally. So I am just, unfortunately, you live life like, when is that shoe gonna drop? When is it gonna show its ugly head in the other breast? Because that's the reality of that cancer. I chose not to have a mastectomy because I had heard so many horror stories of it, and I had gone through so much, right? And then my cancer was highly estrogen driven, and they're like, let's shut down your ovaries by giving you a shot every 3 months. And I was like, let's not, and just remove them because I don't want them. Like, so a year after cancer, and a year and a half after the hysterectomy, I had my ovaries removed. And I was thrown into full on menopause at the age of 39.
Wow.
And that was fun, not.
Yeah. And I'm just like, this is a lot for someone who's not even 40 to have to go through like major reproductive surgery and to lose that, right? And I wonder like what that did for your identity and like how you were able to navigate through that with therapy and with yourself, and how that like has shaped the way you navigate your womanhood.
Yeah. It was hard. It was heavy. It was hard. I still get frustrated. And there are days where, and they tell me to wait until 10 years because in November it'll be 9 years. But because everything looks different, and part of me, because I could still have reconstructive surgery to fix it and have everything look even. Because 2 lumpectomies later, like nothing's even, thank God for the women's, what is that called? The Women's Health Center here in Worcester. I get like the medical bras and stuff where they help, fill that so that I can feel. But there were times where, no one can really tell when they're looking at you. But I remember going on a cruise with my sister, and I had on a really cute fitted dress, and the dress kept shifting. And it was shifting because my bra was shifting, because one breast is so much smaller than the other. That my bra, I didn't have the right bras at the time. And they was shifting. And she was like, your dress looks fine. What do you, and it was me. I kept looking down, and I was like, this is so frustrating. I pulled her into the bathroom, and I went, look, what's happening? And she was like, okay.
Yeah.
When we go back home, like, you should look into look into something. How can you have that fixed so that you could feel confident in a dress? I want to feel confident in a nice formal dress that's fitted. I don't want to feel like I don't like myself in my body, because I knew that I didn't look bad, right? To the outside world, it didn't look bad. And even my sister, who's my best friend. She
Yeah.
couldn't understand why I was getting so frustrated with this damn dress. I was like, can dinner be over and let's get our photos taken so that I can go back to the room and put on another shirt, take off this dress, put on jeans, and just, she's like, but you look so beautiful. And I'm like, I just want to take it off. I don't want it. I don't want it on anymore. I don't want it. And it was because I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin because my bra kept shifting because I wasn't even. And I needed to learn to navigate that. One of my biggest things was the what is that called? The Virginia Thurston Healing Gardens, the cancer center in Harvard, Mass. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I navigated a lot of these emotions through expressive arts therapy, support groups. They do like art what do you call it? Retreats, like little half-day retreats and things like that, but also cancer support groups with other cancer survivors. I'm also part of the Breast Friends Connection, and just being able to talk to other survivors and know that I'm not alone, right? And so that's how I found out about the Women's Imaging Center. That's how I found out about, you know, what's going to help me with my pain. That's how I learned about so many different things that helped me navigate those 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 pieces that were, I felt like they were broken, right? But also body work, like helped me with lymphatic drainage. You can't just go to anyone for lymphatic drainage when you're a cancer patient and you have that, from removing, I had 5 lymph nodes removed. So like my range of motion wasn't good. So I would go to the healing garden and they would do like lymphatic drainage massage. I would have shiatsu. I was introduced to all these different body works that I had never heard of. And just doing that, and so that mindset, right? So you get back to like that positive mindset that helps you get out of the bad and helps you navigate the ugly, because I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Because there's so much change, but it also just changed me as a person. And there's so many things. Like I said, I can't open up a water bottle sometimes. That's frustrating. You know, it's funny because I say to my sister, I'm like, I used to be the strong one between the two of us, and now I'm the weakest link, and you're the strong one, and that's just weird. And I need you to open up a water bottle for me. Like, why? You know, and that's anger, right? That you start feeling that anger. I actually, at my 5-year survivorship, got diagnosed with PTSD. Like, cancer PTSD is a real thing. It's a real thing, and because you get all these emotions and you go through these different stages, and you don't feel them all at once. There's like sadness, right? You're mourning the old you, the things that you used to be able to do that you can no longer do. The side effects that come with the medication, because I was on a rheumatoid inhibitors for 5 years after going through everything. So those wreak havoc. My hair, I was just telling Suzanne last night that I was like, my hair's so thin and it used to be so beautiful and so full. And she's like, it still looks beautiful. And I'm like, but it's not my hair anymore. You know, it's like those little things that I miss, you know, that no one else sees it and no one else will, like, they don't recognize it or they don't notice it. But to me, it's a part of me that's gone and I'll never get back. And everyone's like, oh, but that comes with age. I'm like, but I'm not at that age yet. That this shouldn't be happening yet. I get it. It comes with age. And when I'm the appropriate age, I won't complain about it anymore. But for now, I'm allowed to be mad.
Because a lot of things fast forward for you, it seems. So how did you navigate in that space of like, okay, you know, because you talked about, you know, kind of being angry about like, okay, I'm not getting chemo, now what? You know, like, so what did that look like as you were continuing your healing journey and you had to navigate the spaces of grief, of mourning, but then it sounds like you're finding also like comfort and relationship and in different healing modalities that you probably were never introduced to before, you know, but now that you're on this new journey, you start to see that. And what does that start to look like as far as Rosa before and then coming into this new, you know, Rosa?
It it was, a lot of it was like sisterhood, right? And so community, sisterhood, leaning on other survivors that understood, but also learning to lean on my own family, my own friends, right? That whole I can do it myself attitude out the window. No, I can't. I can't do it myself, and I'm not going to try, right? Like, even little things like the home that I purchased, the little things that I wanted. I wanted my washer and dryer upstairs by my bedroom because I couldn't carry at that time, 6 years ago, I couldn't carry a laundry basket. It hurt to carry a laundry basket from the basement up to my bedroom. I had to have my sister help me with those little things. Taking snow off my car, I couldn't do that. So I wanted a garage. I didn't want to have to do that, right? I'm moving. I want a garage where my car is inside and I don't have to clean off snow. I want the washer and dryer upstairs where I can be there and have it right outside my bedroom. I want a hot tub, like in my jetted tub in my bathroom where I can soak in Epsom salt or whatever and like have those pains heal. I had to find other ways to heal. But I also stayed positive, right? So I don't really talk about, it's very rare for me to talk about all these frustrations and I'm starting to now because I've learned that that's going to help others. And that's what helped me. That's what helped me was identifying with others who were like, oh, I get those same pains as you. This is what I use. You know, like, oh, try this lotion. This lotion's amazing. Try this all natural pill, arnica. I had never heard of arnica before. A friend introduced me to that, and it's all natural. So instead of taking ibuprofen and Tylenol, like I'm taking all natural stuff. You know, CBD lotions. There's one by Naked Bee, I think is the name of the brand, that I just love putting on. But I had to find like my group of people because the most frustrating part is when the nurses are like, no, that's not from radiation. Oh, that's not from us. Or the oncologist office is like, oh, no, that's not from that. Oh, no, really? That's funny because every other cancer survivor I talk to, they deal with the same thing. So what do you mean that's not from you? You know, and it's silly things like down to like receding gum lines because of my medication. One of the medications I was on, my dentist was like, are you on tamoxifen for your cancer journey? And I was like, how did you know that? He's like, because you see this here? And I was like, are you serious? Like just things like that. Like that's frustrating. If I smiled, I have a big smile. If I smile too big, you can see the receding like gum lines. And I hate that. You know, sometimes someone will take a photo of me and I'm like, you made me laugh too much. Like, because I can see it. No one else can.
No, yeah.
You know, but I see it. The medication caused tendonitis in both my wrists. I have neuropathy in my arm from the lymph nodes being removed. I got plantar fasciitis, like fascia tissue damage from radiation, just things that they don't tell you that you're going to go through. And like the fascia tissue damage, I felt like my rib cage was broken one day. And when I went to the doctors, they're like, oh, that's from radiation. I was like, radiation that was 3 years ago? What? This is happening now? They're like, yeah. And every now and then it'll flare up. I was like, oh, so this is like a lifetime thing? It's like people look at you and they're like, you survived cancer, great. I'm like, yeah, but there's like lifetime sentences to this that are just things that are with me for the rest of my life. You know, I was recently sent to go see a rheumatologist because I was having like a lot of pain. I have like nerve pain, bone pain, joint pain, muscle pain. They can't figure out what it is. They're like, oh, it's just another symptom from your cancer journey. I'm like, oh, so the gift that keeps on giving is what I'm calling it. Because I mean, and you have to just make a joke out of things, right? Because if not, I'm going to be angry all the time, and I can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, and but all my friends tell me, they're like, you carried yourself with such grace and such like positivity. Because I'm not gonna sit there and just complain to everyone. So whenever everyone would be like, how are you doing? I was like, I'm doing really good. Like, I'm doing good. And it was rare where I'd be like, nope, I'm not doing good. And if someone heard me say I'm not doing good, they're like, pull up a chair. What's happening? You know, because they weren't used to me saying I'm not doing good. Because I just would be like, I'm good. I'm doing great. Because I found a new love for life. Like, so my therapist had me do a thing. My first year of my diagnosis, I had to keep track and make a scrapbook of all the good that happened that year. She made me keep track of that. And at the end of the year, she made me bring that scrapbook in to a therapy session and go through it and talk about all the good things. And I did all the good things. You know, like I went on a hot air balloon ride. I have a friend who does hot air balloon rides, and I was like, I want to go. She's like, I'm taking you. Let's go. I did that Godzilla ride in Boston, the thrill ride. Have you heard of that? It's like a fast thrill boat ride.
I'm not into that.
I did that because I always wanted to. You know what I mean? So it's like I just did like all the things. I've always wanted to jump out of a plane. well, I haven't jumped out of a plane, but my sister got me like what is that, like the simulation thing where you do
Okay.
like
Yeah,
an
yeah, the
indoor, like an
skydiving. Yeah,
indoor
I've done
skydiving.
that. I've done that.
Yeah, so
But
I've done
yeah,
that.
not the, yeah.
Will you jump out of a plane with me?
I don't know. This is recording, so I'm not gonna say yes because then we'll have evidence.
Oh man.
But maybe. So it sounded like you also, I think when you were talking about like choosing to bring the washer and dryer upstairs and like, oh, I need a garage. It sounds like you started to advocate for yourself. And so what did that you finding your voice for yourself, because it sounds like you can use it for others, but being able to find it for yourself and that advocacy for yourself, how have you been able to use that in your journey for yourself and being able to say, okay, I'm not feeling this way or I'm doing this, like,
Yeah,
and navigating those spaces?
I love that question
Mm,
because in having a voice for myself,
mm,
I've learned to say no.
mm.
Um, I'm still a very much a yes person. Like if
Yeah.
someone says let's go somewhere, I'm like yes, and I don't ask questions. Like
Yeah.
let's go to this trip, I'm like yes, and then people, what do you do? I don't know. I don't need to know the details. This sounds fun. Let's go. But in terms of saying no and setting boundaries for myself and being okay with
Mm,
that, I definitely learned how to do that. Because I was always the kind of person where I would feel bad if I said no, or if I felt bad if I had said yes to something and then I wasn't feeling good and then I had to say no. Like I learned that it is okay to put
mhm.
myself first because I was still healing and it took years to heal. I mean, I still
The
go through it,
process.
it's still the process. Like the pains, I still deal with the pains. The rheumatology that I was referred to, that was just this fall. I'm
Mm,
still dealing with a lot of the aftermath. Um, but I learned that my career, like I changed careers, right? And I don't know if I would have done that if I hadn't gone through a cancer journey.
mm,
I learned to put myself in spaces that I didn't think I belonged in before, and we talk about how we met and that leadership academy. I don't think I would have done something like that
yeah.
prior. But the other part of it is I used to be afraid of speaking in public. And
Mm,
I now do that. And I do that because I'm advocating for myself, but I'm also helping to hopefully inspire others,
yeah.
right? That's my goal, is to empower and to help others. But I think the biggest thing for me was learning to say no if something didn't settle right with me. I like to also say that cancer gave me this little superpower of like feeling others' energies more. And I have learned to remove myself from, and I'm not going to say it's like bad energy, but
Mm,
sometimes people have energy that you just can't take on.
yeah.
You know,
Oh
their
yeah.
energy is just like, if they don't necessarily have bad energy, it's just their
Yeah.
energy is just too much and it drains me. And I still to this day still get overstimulated. And I
Yeah.
remember I went recently with my sister to something, I forget where it was. And I was like, I'm getting tired. Starting to hit a
Mm,
wall of fatigue and I was starting to feel overstimulated. It was too much. It was an amazing evening, but the energy was too much for me.
yeah.
And she loves to take her time, like pure Latina, like goodbyes take forever in Latino households. And I'm like, I need you to like wrap
Wrap
it
it
up
up.
and say
Yeah.
bye fast. Like I gotta go. Like I was starting to literally feel
Yeah.
so sick and I felt bad saying that because it's been so long since I felt that
Mm,
fatigue like that. But, I've learned to just speak up for myself and be like, it's okay for me to say, like, I have to go right now. Like
yeah.
this is the end for me.
Yeah.
Like if I don't move on and go home and rest, I'm going to physically get ill.
Yeah.
And when I push myself to that point, I'm out for the count for a couple days.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to just say no and
Yeah.
say, I gotta go.
It's like
It's it's
honor
yeah.
yourself.
Respect myself and honor myself and just have that voice
Yeah.
and be okay with saying I can't do that.
Yeah. I think and it goes to like it's like learning probably that like I just in my obviously a whole different journey with recovery and substance use, but knowing that I don't have to be in every place or all places, like having that autonomy over
Mm-hmm.
like choosing where I
Yes.
belong, where I need to be, and like you find, like you were saying with energies and stuff, it's like you realize that like I only want to be around like
What aligns with
what
me.
aligns and
Mhm.
what I value and
Mhm.
like folks that also value those same things. So like being able to choose that
Yes.
and say, okay, and maybe that event didn't have anything to do with any of that, but it was just like, okay, my I'm being drained. I'm
Mhm.
at a level. I'm like, okay, like enough is
Mhm.
enough. Like I
Right.
can
It's like
go,
too much people
like
in. I can't people right now. I
yeah,
gotta go. Like
yeah.
even if it's like fun, something fun, but it
Yeah,
drains
yeah,
me,
yeah.
right? Because
And
even
just
that.
knowing that,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle with having that personal autonomy
Mhm.
and being able to say, okay, like I can remove myself.
Mhm.
Like I
Yeah.
don't have to stay until the
Yeah.
doors close. Like
Exactly.
I
Yes.
can come for an
Yeah.
hour or two and
Yeah.
like be able to make
Mhm.
those choices
Yeah.
and be like, okay, like
Right.
thank you. I came, I saw it
I've
and
al-
like
I've also learned like in spaces of work,
mm,
right? And if something does, because when I changed careers, I went somewhere and it didn't align with me.
mm,
And if it doesn't align with what I want, I don't have to stay, right? Like
mm,
I don't have to stay and do that.
yeah.
I know my worth and I think I've really grown a lot and I've matured and cancer changed me, but it changed me for the better and it
Mm,
changed me to know who I am, what I want in life and like what I won't accept in my life.
mhm,
Um and how to just say no is really the biggest thing, but also how to put me first and put what I want
yeah.
first and like recognize my value and my worth and know that if someone's not going to value me and they're not going to see my worth, then they don't deserve to have me around,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I love that. As you changed career paths, what made you do that? Like, what did you see in your old career that you started to seek something different that maybe aligned more with like maybe that helper that in you?
Yeah, so it's funny. I say that my career in banking was an accidental career.
Mm,
Um, I was always social work is near and dear to my heart,
mm,
right? I went to school. I wanted to be a probation officer for juveniles, is what really wanted to do.
mm,
I used to be a domestic violence counselor, and I was, did social work before that. So for a few years out of college, I had done that, and then I fell into banking as a temporary thing because
mm,
I graduated at a time where a lot of hiring freezes were happening. There was a lot of
mm,
layoffs. I had had some jobs where I had been laid off and then I got called back, got laid off again. So it just wasn't a good time,
mm,
in the state of Massachusetts where things were being held, right? So I fell into this banking job as a temporary because what I really wanted to do was work for the Department of Revenue, but they had a hiring freeze.
mm,
And that hiring freeze lasted and it just kept lasting. And I remember like I kept reaching out to the HR guy. And after like 3 years, I'm like, I'm done. I'm not gonna keep reaching out. And at that point, I was already far into banking and I was really loving
mm,
it. And banking is a lucrative job, and I worked for really good credit unions. I worked for two different credit unions and they were amazing.
mhm,
And I think I needed to be there when I went through what I went through because the amount of support that I received, it was just a blessing.
yeah.
But then in that job where I was a mortgage loan officer and went back and I was part-time for a whole year before I went back full-time, and I was recovering. I was also being forced by my management to like go out and network. And
Mm,
I was like, no, I don't like the people, right? I was shy. I didn't like to speak in front of
mm,
people. I didn't like to be in spaces where I didn't know anyone. Like I was so shy. And they pushed me out of my comfort zone and I started networking. I became part of the Relay for Life and then somehow ended up on the event leadership team. And then I was part of the United Way Day of Caring. And then I somehow ended up on their steering committee.
mm,
And I was just like saying yes to all these things in the community that were things that help others, right?
mm,
And like my favorite day of the year was the United Way Day of Caring, and it only came once a year.
mm,
And I was like, I want to do this all the time. I want to do work that is from the heart and that makes me feel good every day. I don't want to just volunteer and do this once a year. I
mm,
don't want to just be doing things every now and then as a volunteer. Like, I want to do work that go home and say, wow, I helped. I help people. I mean, don't get me wrong, in banking, you're helping, right? I was helping
yeah.
people
Yeah.
buy their first homes. I was helping them
Mhm.
with their loans. Like, yes, but it's a different kind of when you're in human services and in
Yeah.
social work, it's just so different.
Yeah.
So different. And it warms my heart, and I love the work. And that's what I found, that courage to just step away. And I was like, I can do this. I can leave a 20 something year career of
Mhm.
banking and step away and go back to my roots, is what I say.
Mhm.
And now I mentor young girls. I'm a therapeutic mentor part time. And I can mentor young girls that have suicidal ideation, who are depressed, who have this, right? And I can meet them with compassion because I've been there.
Mhm.
So I'm not just a person that's telling them, you need to work on these coping skills, you need to work on this. I'm a person who's telling them that from a place of the heart because I've been there. And I can say to them, I am proof that your depressed you right now is not future you. I
Mhm.
am proof that you can be someone else. And I had one girl, I would be like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would always joke with her, I'm going to be a little old lady with a cane and you're going to take me for ice cream and we're going to talk about you being a doctor. And she would just smile and be like, I love that you have that faith in me. I'm like, because I know you'll be here to do that.
Mhm.
So I'm going to make sure that I keep in touch with your mom. And when you're going to take me for ice cream, I'm going to be a little
Mhm.
old lady. You're going to take me for ice cream. And she would just laugh. But that like got her to have that courage and that strength. And she found that strength and she worked through all of her goals,
Mhm.
and eventually I was able to discharge her from services because she worked on everything she needed to work on. And that just fills my heart to be
Yeah.
able to help kids.
I love that. And I think I think that'll lead us into we did the ILA,
Yes.
Intergenerational Leadership Academy with Maywalk.
Mhm.
And that's how I met you.
Yes.
And I do remember, maybe our first, they do this circle and we just kind of like open up and
Mhm.
so you were very open about being a survivor. Um, and having that, as being your catalyst to like try new things,
Mhm.
right? And with the ILA, we've been able to have, we finished this course, this
Mhm.
12-week, which was beautiful, the experience of being able to, be with all women of
Mhm.
color and have
Yeah.
those talk about things that we'll never, be able to talk about in a regular room.
Mhm.
It's really curated for us to be able to be more vulnerable, more open, and explore in a way that would never ever been, introduced to. At least I hadn't up
Mhm.
until that point, right? And then we get to have a mentee and we get matched and they actually match us with someone that
Mhm.
they think, would
Yeah.
be a good match. and
Mhm.
and I know my experience with my mentee, like we've been able to do volunteer events and like
That's
service
amazing.
work is like huge for us. And um you know, giving back, it is something different when you're serving from this heart
Yeah.
space, because it's a servant's heart,
Mhm.
right? And you just know that, like, I know for me, I go back to like being in substance use disorder. When I came in, I was dying. Like, I mean, I was on death's door. Like, my only prayer was, just get me to 30 and I promise, like, I'll do whatever it takes. And volunteerism was one of them things that got me through that.
I love that.
Um, so what was your experience with ILA and then like the being a mentor, and because you're talking about, now your job in social work and like being able to like shift that. How did that experience um look like for you?
I loved that complete experience because, and
Mhm.
I spoke about this in some of our sessions,
Yeah.
where growing up, I had well, you don't look Latina, you don't look
Mhm.
Puerto Rican, and then the flip side. So it's like I got that from both
Mm.
sides, right? Because I got those that weren't Latinos. I went to a predominantly white school,
Mm.
and there was a lot of racism in that school. I
Yeah.
was maybe one of 5 people of color in the whole school. Um, so I went from that side, right? So you deal with it on that side, but then I was dealing with it with my own community
Yeah.
and within, the community that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Um, and so Maywalk was the first time where I felt like I had a seat at the table, where I felt like I was included, where I actually felt like people looked at me
Mm.
and they saw a Latina,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that didn't happen often for me, because I'm light skinned, because,
Mhm.
I don't know, because people have apparently have never been to Puerto Rico and they don't know that we come in all
All
shades.
shades.
You
I
know?
get it because I don't speak the language, so I feel it from that end.
Yeah.
So I look it, people will come up to me and automatically speak it, but then I'm like,
It-
hola. That's all I know.
right? And
Yeah, yeah,
I get it because
yeah.
I don't look it.
Speak it. Yeah.
But my parents, I mean, it's my first language. My parents taught me Spanish first. They were like, "You will learn English when you go to school.
Yeah.
We're not teaching you English in this household." And my grandmothers didn't speak English, and a lot of my aunts and uncles, they speak English, but very broken,
Yeah.
I mean, my parents both still have a really cute accent. I love them. Sometimes my sister and I will joke with my mom and be like, "Mommy, just talk to us in Spanish. Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to say?" But that I loved how they paired everyone, and like my
Yeah.
mentee was a lot like me, and she
Mhm.
was just I going to miss her. Like I want to be able to stay in touch with her.
Yeah.
But it's the whole experience was just amazing. I love everything that they brought in, all the circles that we did, everything that everyone shared, and just being able to feel like I was finally part of something
Mhm.
that, even though I was born and raised here, like just being introduced to that. And I have to say, a lot of that, I was introduced to that because of someone that I met when I changed my career. So, like, everything's been
Mhm.
kind of a domino effect,
Yeah.
right? Like, so, like, the first job I went to after banking, I met a woman who introduced me to Maywalk and said, "You should be involved with Maywalk." And then I learned
Mhm.
about the Intergenerational Leadership Academy. So I applied. And, it's like little things. There's been
Yeah.
such domino effects that have brought me to where I am
Yeah.
today. And I just cherish every moment
Yeah.
of it. I love it, and I love that you and your mentee do volunteer
Yeah.
stuff together.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's been amazing. And I think when we first talked, it was like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you see? And that was one of the things she mentioned was, she wanted to maybe look into nonprofit and look into what it was to like explore that.
Hmm.
And so, because that's a lot of my background,
Hmm.
we've been able to explore that. And she's been down to EBS with Mari and got a
Yes.
certificate, and she's got some awards. And like, it's just so, I think that part of what you see,
Amazing.
right? When you get to see,
Hmm.
you get to pour. I feel like for me, I pour in a way what I always wanted and never got. So I get to see that, but then they also give me something that I, couldn't even fathom,
Hmm.
as far as like, wow, like the gift of that,
Yeah.
but I think with ILA, and I don't know if you had that experience because, like I said, you're like glowing. You are a different Rosa
Then when
than
you met me.
2024, and
Yeah.
I also am, right? Like people didn't know, like in that entire group, I was going through a breakup,
Hmm.
with my kids, and like so my world was spinning upside down, and ILA was able to like be that constant
Yeah.
for me in
It
that
was like
moment,
my soul
right?
searching moment. I was on medical
Yeah,
leave.
yeah,
I was
yes,
going through a hard time, right? I was
yeah,
I was in another I was spiraling into
yeah,
what was going to be another dark
yeah.
place, and I was like, we're
Yeah.
not going there.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. That's not
Yeah.
happening. We're gonna reel you back, and that's just not going to happen. And
Yeah.
a lot of it helped me. It
Mhm.
was the perfect thing for me to do. Literally, I want to say that I think I was on medical leave the entire time
Yeah.
that we did that program
Yeah.
it was virtual, right? That we
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
Um, and it saved me. It
Yeah.
was a time where I was doing a lot of soul
Same.
searching, and I was
Same.
trying to figure out what is Rosa going to do.
Mhm.
And that's one of our classmates that I met. That's how I got the job that I got into in
Mhm.
doing the social work. Now I'm a licensed social worker.
I love
I got my LSWA, and I now am working with kids. I'm a therapeutic mentor because of
Mm.
her. Like it's almost like I'm a
Mhm.
mentor for the mentee that was assigned to me, but then I
Yeah.
found someone who was like my mentor
Yeah.
and who helped me with
Mhm.
navigating where am I going to go and what am I going to
Yeah.
do for work now. And I found my calling. I
Yeah.
found what I wanted. And so it was two-parted, right? Because
Mhm.
it helped me soul search,
Yeah.
and it helped me stay in it, not spiral into a dark place again.
Mhm.
Find a sisterhood, find a group of beautiful women inside and out
Yeah.
that we were there for each other, right? And I wish that we had done more in person because I
Yeah.
really feel like our group was so amazing. But like my mentee, she's like little me, like shy, quiet, doesn't like to speak in public. And I tell her how I was when I was her age and like the things I do now. And she's like, oh my gosh, and it gives her hope that she won't always
Yeah.
be that way and that she too can find a voice. She too can do things and it's not so scary.
Yeah.
Right? It's like teaching her that it's not scary. And I
Yeah.
get it because I was you,
Mm.
and I always tell her the story. I would tell her how when I was in college, I did the Disney program. I worked for Disney World when I was in college. I did their college program.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was worked in Fantasyland. I was an attraction hostess. So I worked like Dumbo the Flying Elephant, Cinderella's Carousel, and the Peter Pan ride. But I also did the Lion King show. So I don't know if you've been to Disney World in Florida.
No.
So they have this theater where they always have like different shows. At the time, it was the Lion King show. Have you ever been to like an attraction where they're like, come all the way in and step all the way forward and all the way to the left? Like I was that person that had to say that. That petrified me. I didn't want to do that. I literally had panic attacks and anxiety. And I would be like, can someone else just do this? I don't want to. They're like, Rosa, just speak into the mic and have your back towards. No one needs to see you. They can't even see you from all the way back there. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I would literally spiral into such anxiety from that. Like speaking, doing that. Like I didn't want to do that. And now I've spoken at conferences. Like I've spoken at a women's leadership conference, like a luncheon conference.
Yeah.
And I want to be a motivational speaker. And I've done like, I've come on podcasts like this one and whatnot. And
You're making the rounds.
I'm making the rounds, and I speak at the Relay for Life of Greater Gardner. I fundraise for them, which is part of the American Cancer Society. And we do these events called Light the Town Purple, and I talk about my story and I talk about, my journey through depression and cancer and how cancer saved my life. And it's amazing. I spoke at Suzanne's I Got You Sis Summit, and I'm doing all the things. And if you told somebody that worked with me at Disney that I'm speaking in front of people, they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
That's funny because she never wanted to do that. It was and I got paid to do that back then, like no, I was petrified. My sister even, she's like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
so what do you
changed
do
you?
now to kind of talk yourself through even, coming through here, being on, other shows? Like what has led up to that and how are you navigating that space to be like, no, I belong here. I have a voice. I'm going to use it. And how have you been able to like talk yourself through that?
Breathe. Just breathe.
It's
Breathing
one of the
techniques. Like I
easiest
literally,
things.
breathe. But another
Yeah.
thing, when I find myself getting nervous, is I tap.
Okay.
I do tap in. Like have you ever? I forget the actual term, but the EFT or something like that. Phenomenal tool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and just reminding myself, like, you're doing good things, and I've helped other people. I have friends who tell me, you helped me through my divorce. You helped me through a dark time. You helped me realize, that I was not being treated right at my job. And I'm like, how did I help you realize that? Like, I don't know, but I'm helping people. And to have people actually tell me that I'm helping them, it just, it, I know that I have a greater purpose, right? There's a reason. And so, just following my heart and following what feels right to me.
I love that. And I think that, being able to find that renewed hope and, the idea that like I am not my story, like I'm not these bad things that happen. They happen. They're giving me this space and platform, but you've turned it into, like hope.
Yeah.
Right? Like instead of, sinking into that. And maybe there are times where it just feels so heavy, like you're like, but then to be like, nope,
Yeah.
I notice it. I think the awareness of it,
Yeah.
right?
The
To
awareness.
have the
Yeah.
awareness of like, oh, nope, we're not going there. Or, okay, now I need to go do X, Y, and Z, is such a gift to be able to like know that no, life is worth living.
It
And
is.
I think that that is like the message of
Yeah.
it's worth showing up for.
Life is worth showing up for, and it's worth living, and it's like you have to appreciate all the little things, right? And so it's given me a new love for life, and I appreciate every little thing. Like even where I drive by somewhere and I see something that catches my eye, and I'll stop and I'll take a photo of it, and I just like let that moment sink in, and it can be something as silly as I saw it here in Worcester. There was like a little owl drawing on something, and I was like, that's really cute. It says something about Worcester police protecting or something. I don't know. I don't know what it said.
Yep.
I stopped and I focused on it and I took a picture of it, and I was like, I took in the message, right? And little things like that. Like I just appreciate so many different things. My favorite place is the ocean, and I love going to the ocean and just soaking in ocean air. Actually, when I was diagnosed with cancer, one of the things that I did every day, because I was team no sleep, is what I would say. I couldn't sleep, and I would wake up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would just get in the shower, get ready for work, and I would head to work early. And on the way to work, there's a lake. And I would go to the lake and watch the sunrise on the lake. And then I would go to my office because there was another coworker who was a crazy guy, and he was always in the office super early before the sun came up. So I was like, I won't be in the office by myself. He'll be there. So I'm just going to go watch the sunrise over the lake, and then I'm going to go to the office early. And that's always been my soothing kind of like, that was like my first tool was
So
water.
grounding.
Any body of water just grounded me and made me feel like, okay, I can do this, because it was tough. There was a lot of tough moments, and a lot of recovery, and my body went through so much between the biopsies and the surgeries. In an 18-month span, I had gone through 10 between surgeries and biopsies, where they either gave me like light sedation or put me under anesthesia completely, or like
So it's a
local
lot of
anesthesia.
trauma.
18 months, 10 surgeries slash. So it was a lot. And the last one that I had done threw me for a loop. Like my body was just like, we can't recover. And I think that's what took me so long to be able to go back to work full time, was because in between all of that too, I did 7.5 weeks of radiation. And so it was a lot, and then you pair this with, at the time when I was diagnosed, that was right after Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. So my mother's sister was here. And thank God she was here staying with my mom, because she was, what was happening in the island. We brought her here. And that was like a blessing, right? It's crazy to say, but that in and of itself, Hurricane Maria was almost like a blessing for my family, because my mom had her sister in the time that she needed
to carry her
through
as you
her
guys were
baby.
navigating.
Yeah.
And not knowing not knowing, right?
Yeah,
I love that. So what would you tell, someone that is maybe experiencing this, for the first time and going through this journey? What would be that thing that you would tell them to navigate them through their journey that they can maybe hold on to?
So like the cancer journey or depression journey?
I
Or
think
both?
both. I think maybe, your depression was before, but then it carried through. And so, and I don't think everyone's gonna be like, oh, you had opposite, like, oh, like,
Yeah.
I need to get out of this shit. But like, if you're in it, what does that look like?
I mean, my biggest thing is this too shall pass, right? And like I say to the girls that I mentor, like, your today is not your tomorrow, and what you're going through right now, it doesn't have to be your forever. And yeah, it's going to suck. But my thing with anyone going through cancer, because I do talk to a lot of newly diagnosed cancer survivors, and my biggest thing that I say to them is be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself. And I think that's something I wish people had said to me even when I went through the hysterectomy, right? That be patient with yourself, because I was always so frustrated that I couldn't do things. And even at the beginning of my cancer journey, or like when those little side effects started to happen where I would get so frustrated, it's like, be kind to yourself and be gentle, but also positivity. Like a positive mindset is going to have positive outcomes. You have to have a positive mindset, because if you just give in to the bad and you're like, well, that's it, like, woe's me, woe you, if you are negative, you're going to have negative impacts, right? So it's always positive mind, positive outcomes. And I always say that you have to stay positive and also feel your feelings. I've said that. I had somebody say to me, well, I can't cry. You know, the doctors don't want me to cry. My family, no one wants me to cry. And I'm like,
Why?
screw that.
Yeah.
Cry.
Why?
I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, you want to cry right now? I was like, I could give you something to cry about, but you're going to cry these things out. Like, you have to cry. And one thing that I always say is scream therapy is my thing. And I learned that from my dad when I was younger, and I thought he was crazy, but scream therapy really works. Just scream it out. Scream it out.
I love that.
Because you're going to get frustrated and life is going to throw curveballs, and you have to find ways of what helps you navigate that frustration, because you have to feel all those feelings, because if you don't feel all those feelings and you bottle them up, you're not going to heal.
Yeah. Just implodes.
Yeah. At the wrong time, right?
Yeah.
It's always the wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, therapy, you've said a lot of resources. I think, therapy, the healing arts, different healing modalities, and your sisterhood. I think community is key when we're navigating through anything, and finding that support system to really usher us through our journey. So I appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to see what, new adventures you take on and how you really step into your power. And because when you came in, I can see, that glow, and you're ready to like give that away and like say, I'm here and I'm here to stay and I have a message for you and this is what it is. So
Yes.
look
And
forward to
also
it.
like strength, there's so much strength in community.
Yeah.
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
And volunteerism.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that too.
Amen.
And it makes me feel good, and I still get involved in whatever. I mean, you sent me a message, it was to the wrong person. I was like, but can I donate? Can I help out?
I'm like, she's like, what is happening? And I'm
like, but tell me
oh
more, I can help out.
And then and that'll, I'm like, okay, you can drop off clothes to this address. Anything you have, go through your closet. So you can also go through your closets. Yeah, beautiful. So where can we find you? Because you're doing, you have fundraisers, you're doing Relay for Life. So how can we get involved? Where can we find you in that?
So my Relay for Life team is called Rosa's Warriors. I do have a link for that, but it's through the Greater Gardener Relay for Life.
Okay.
Rosa's Warriors, if anyone wants to join my team, and the Relay for Life is June 12th and 13th, or 12th and 13th. I'm pretty sure it's a Friday and Saturday. Somebody kept messing up the dates the other day, and so now I'm confused.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blame Froggy Brain, but 12th and 13th, I'm pretty sure it's a Friday and a Saturday. It starts at 6 p.m. on Friday. I always invite people to come. If you've never experienced the Relay for Life, it is such a empowering evening. It is so beautiful.
As a teenager.
Oh, it is so beautiful. So I have that, and so if you go to Greater Gardener Relay for Life, you'll find Rosa's Warriors. You'll see my team and my page, and then Instagram. Photography by Rosa Marili is my photography. I like to do photography, so I have my Instagram on there as well.
And then I know you do fundraisers throughout the year, so we can link that. I'll link it with the picture because this won't come out until maybe July, I think.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to throw that up in support, and I think that it's beautiful. I know personally I used to do the Relay for Life as a teenager. We used to do the weekend thing and be taking laps all through the night and everything like that.
Yeah,
so,
we do that. We pitch a tent. My mom comes, my niece comes, my nephews come, and we camp. It's fun. It's great. It's tiring, but it's fun.
It's fun.
And it's for a great cause.
Yeah. I love that. So thank you again. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having me.
And this is Crossroad Conversations, and we're just so excited to bring these episodes to you and to really highlight the different ways we can, resource, heal, talk about different, topics where, we're really getting down to like how people have chose to heal. And I think Rosa has chosen to really heal and make that positive impact. So you can follow us on any social media platform. What's Up Worcester, Women Strong Recovery. This is subscribe, like, comment. You can donate What's Up Worcester is a nonprofit organization, and so our goal is to really get these stories out, highlight our community and all the resources and the beautiful work that's happening here. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Welcome to the place where paths collide. Crossroad Conversations, let's take the ride. From shadows deep to the light we see. Stories of strength,